Today is such a huge milestone for me and for us. It was 2 years ago this week that the Being Aloud podcast was launched. June 13th, 2022 to be exact. And no matter how many pages I write or episodes I record, I will never be able to put into words the degrees to which I have changed and evolved and grown because of it. I will never be able to express the gratitude that now lives permanently in my heart, or the humble disbelief that we are here, doing this together, still. I spent this morning journaling in preparation for this episode. I listened to the first episode, episode 0, and I teared up. Then I scrolled through all 81 plus episodes, remembering the topics we dug into, and again, I teared up. It is insane how comfortable you all have made me feel to open up about some of the topics that we dug into. Never in a million years did I expect this to be the outcome. Never in a million trillion years did I expect to find a home here. I have messages saved in a separate folder on my phone where I have taken screenshots of your sweet and genuine messages over the past 2 years. Because despite the fact that the Being Aloud podcast continues to be a one-woman production and that it is therefore impossible for me to respond to every single one of your messages, I have been reading them all, cherishing every single one, and keeping them where access is easy. Because they really have been keeping me going. The impact that our little community has had on me will only be cheapened if I attempt to describe it, so suffice it to say what I have already said. But all I know is that we are here. 1 year older together. Another year wiser and more courageously vulnerable. This episode is a heart-to-heart from my heart to yours. So grab your tea or coffee or whatever, get cozy, and let's begin this very special conversation. Hello, friend. Just so you know, this is like my 4th trial of recording this episode and filming it. And the first time my microphone just decided to disconnect and then wouldn't reconnect for some reason. Finally, I have it working again now, for now. Another time I started recording and then literally couldn't get like 2 sentences in without like stuttering and saying something weird. So I deleted that. And then the third time I recorded 10 entire minutes only to realize this isn't at all what I want to be talking about. And so I had to scratch that. So this is the fourth take. So 4th time is the charm. But I think that the reason why I am unable to get this right this time for some reason is just because I am so filled with all kinds of emotions. There's so much going on inside of me right now as I'm recording this episode that everything's all over the place, I guess. And I need to just take a couple seconds to breathe and recenter and tell you hello and welcome to another episode, or welcome back for another episode, or welcome here for the first time. As has been true for the past 2 years, I am your host, Bibeshe. And like I said, I am just in disbelief that I'm here still. 2 years. 2 years into podcasting. And let me tell you that when I first started, I did not think that I would make it this far. Because for some reason, I have a big flaw. I tend to get very excited about things and get super convinced that they should be what I do for the rest of my life. And I start them and I never see anything through. Definitely not 2 years worth of the same thing. And when I first started, I was in such a mess. I remember like when I finally hit publish on the 13th of June, 2022, I was in the thick of the deepest, bottomless pit I had ever fallen into in my entire life. That was in the thick of the mess of my divorce, and the mess of the pain that came with it, and the mess of having to listen to other people's versions of what I had to live through, like all the rumors that were spreading and all the things that people wanted to believe. And so it was a very pain-ridden season of my life. But I guess what I must have realized back then, at least subconsciously, was that because so many rumors had been spread about me by the time June came around, and because everybody had their own versions of what was true, and because my life was now on full display, I kind of had nothing to lose. So even though, like, had you come to me maybe a year, 2 years, 5 years earlier and told me, you're going to be recording something, you're going to be recording your voice every single week. And not only that, it's going to expand and it's going to grow to where now you're going to have your face along with your voice on YouTube, as well as every other like audio version of your voice being recorded everywhere for everybody to see, I would have laughed and laughed and laughed and probably run out of breath in my lungs from how hard I was going to laugh, because there's no way I could have seen myself putting myself literally in this kind of a spotlight, because with the spotlight comes criticism and scrutiny and people saying what they want to say and having opinions, spreading even more rumors, formulating images in their brains and like whatever opinions. And now you're choosing to put yourself in a situation where people are seeing you, and so long as people can see you, they can have their own opinions and you can't tell them anything. And before, I used to care too much about what people used to think, how people perceived me. I didn't know that I cared. I thought I didn't care. But now, in hindsight, oh my gosh, I cared so much. But when I hit publish on that very first episode in 2022, June 13th, I was like, what do I have to lose? Everybody already has a picture of who they think I am in their heads. What do they have to lose? Meanwhile, I believe that something good could come of this. I couldn't see that everything happens for a reason. And I hate it when people say that. But I couldn't surrender to the fact that my life was over. I couldn't surrender to the fact that, okay, now I was infamously the airport girl because of the disgusting airport incident. I was also infamously my ex's ex-wife. I was now an ex-wife, no longer married. My reputation had been tarnished. Any image that I had drawn or pictured for my future was over. And here I was, starting from scratch, with very little hope. Like I couldn't see that this could ever turn into anything good. Like truly, genuinely, sincerely, you can ask anyone who lived in close proximity to me in those years. I was a very hopeless wreck. Like I was a wreck. I mean, I remember I would lock myself in rooms. I would be in we'd have a family gathering or whatever. And then halfway through the family gathering, first of all, I refused to go to family gatherings that were anywhere outside of our house, because I needed to be comfortable. And so I'd be sitting downstairs with my cousins and my aunts and uncles and everybody. And then I would escape and come to my room and sit by myself and breathe, because I couldn't be around people for a long period of time. I was a wreck. I mean, anxiety, depression, hopelessness, despair, gosh, you name it. But by the time June came around, all of that was still true and I was still trying to figure out everything. But all I could think about, literally all, was, oh my gosh, if I am having to go through this and it is this excruciating, then someone else somewhere must be going through this as well. Because rarely ever, if ever, I don't think ever, anyone walks through a season that not at least one person can relate to as well. So, I mean, I was getting divorced and I already knew my best friend was already divorced before me, like a year before me or a little over a year before me. She got divorced as well. So I knew a very close person who had walked through what I had gone through. And then all of a sudden, I started getting introduced to all these other people who were going through the same things as well. And then all of a sudden, because of the intensity of my pain, I started finding that I was hyper aware of other people's pains more than ever before. There's something about pain that once you experience a certain degree of it, you become so empathetic towards all the other pain in the world as well. You start feeling other people's pain so much more because now you can't pretend like you haven't experienced the depths of the intense pain that you've experienced. And now just the thought that someone else is having to go through the same pain just hurts double. Like it hurts double. And so with this awareness, I was like, well, if I'm going through this pain and now I'm aware of other people's pains because life is life and people were still sharing their stories with me, how can I keep quiet? I thought of it this way. I was like, well, usually people have stuff to say, but they don't say the stuff that they have to say because they don't want to be in the public eye. They don't want to be center of attention. They don't want all eyes to be on them. They care what people are gonna say. Yada yada yada. Everything that I basically had felt and experienced myself. But now I had nothing to lose because anyone who wanted to say anything gnarly and disgusting about me had already said it. Some to my face and some behind my back, and some in the form of rumors, some in the form of Facebook comments, Instagram DMs, you name it. You name it. I had people coming to my parents after church saying things. I had people coming to my aunts and uncles after church bad-mouthing me, saying things because they were only hearing things from one side of the story. And so anyone who wanted to say anything about me had either already said it or was super empowered to say it anyway, regardless. So I had nothing to lose. Really. I mean, truly. And I'm so grateful. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy that because of the crap that was spoken about me and the insane amounts of pain that I had to suffer because of people spreading rumors about me, like horrible, very creative rumors, like, wow, honestly, impressive. But isn't it amazing that the pain that all of that caused ended up doing nothing but empowering me to find myself exactly where I'm supposed to be. And here I am 2 years later, looking back at all the crap that I had to endure in order to find myself here, finally speaking, genuinely not giving a crap what people say about me, but instead holding firmly to the message that I have to send, the calling that I have found in my chest to do this courageously, vulnerably, because or for the one person that it's gonna touch. The one person that my humble words recorded here in my room have the power to pierce through and speak to. And guess what? My inbox is full of people sharing their deepest, most vulnerable stories with me. For some reason, I don't know why. And they share them with me in confidence, and I don't share the what people tell me, but I just listen to people who have felt comfortable enough to share their pain with me. And for the past 2 years, I've been praying for people who've been DMing me. I've been taking screenshots of these messages to kind of remember that we really are all the exact same, that no man is an island, that what I have found the courage to share about so vulnerably does and will continue to touch someone who's going through something painful, letting that person know that they're not alone in their pain, that their pain is unique in some ways to them, but in larger ways, it's not unique at all, because we're all living this life together, having to deal with the pain and the reality of what it means to be a person. And sometimes that reality isn't easy. And sometimes that reality is tears. That's reality, is tears, you know? And so here I am 2 years later, shocked, shocked at the community that has built around the Being Aloud podcast. Never would I have ever imagined being the person that strangers choose to DM and share their deepest, darkest secrets with. What a humbling experience that you trust me. And even though I haven't been able to respond to every single person over the course of the past 2 years, because it honestly has been a lot of work. I can't even explain how much work. But I have taken screenshots in a private folder on my phone, and I have been praying for every person who's reached out to me. Lord knows. But I've also used these messages as the driving force that, like, remember that even on your lowest days, these people are reminding you that your feelings are not unique to you, which is what I hope to do through this episode. Anyway, as I was journaling this morning, I realized 3 big things, right? 3 big things that I have learned and that I'm very grateful for over the past 2 years. And I just wanted to go through them really quickly with you. The first one is, actually there are 4 things. I don't know. First one is that thanks to this podcast and thanks to how much you guys encourage me, I have now become a lot more disciplined in general. I already told you I'm not the type of person to stick with something for long enough to see it evolve the way that this podcast has evolved. But because of this podcast, because I genuinely believe in what I'm doing, like even when the views go up or when the views go down, I genuinely do this the same because I believe. And you guys have given me a reason to believe. And because of that, I have become a lot more disciplined, not just with the podcast, but with every other creative endeavor as well. Like, this podcast has evolved from just being in audio form to also being in video form to also becoming an extra vlog on YouTube, because I want to get to know you guys and I want you to get to know me as well. And I've now become a lot more disciplined in my watercolor painting, and hopefully I'm working on something that could be very exciting in the future as well. And so it all started with this podcast, this idea of sticking to the discipline of creating because you believe in what you create is all thanks to you guys, is all thanks to the Being Aloud podcast. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I have become a lot more insistent on speaking vulnerably. Vulnerability is a very scary thing, especially when it comes to putting that vulnerability on the World Wide Web for everybody everywhere around the world to listen to or to be privy to, regardless of how that vulnerability takes form. It's a very courageous act to be vulnerable, but never have I ever been more fearless or courageous with my heart and with the things that I go through. Because if I go through something now more than ever, I believe that it's not for nothing and that I need to speak it out, because we are all the same. And because I know someone else out there will be able to relate, and someone else out there will be able to, or will be put in a situation eventually where they need to hear these things. And so I am so empowered to continue being vulnerable. And now, recently, I have decided to make this, I don't even know what fell. Something did. My phone. But now the podcast is also in English because why not? Why not take it to a global audience? Why not put this in a place where everyone can relate to it? Because it really doesn't matter, does it? We're all people. It doesn't matter if you're Egyptian or Saudi or American or wherever you're from. We're all people. And if I can speak a global language that lets everybody all around the world know that vulnerability brings vulnerability, and that when you're courageous enough to be vulnerable, it touches lives. And then your life ripples beyond your own. I mean, that's a huge thing I've learned, and I'm so grateful. Yeah, and then the last thing is that it's crazy how all the big things in life, all the big meaningful things in life usually tend to start with just teeny tiny steps of faith. You don't even need to take a leap of faith. You can just take a small step of faith. And then you will see leaps and bounds in hindsight from the person that you started off as, how you just decided to close your eyes and not think too much about it and just do the first thing. And now here you are 2 years later looking back and being like, whoa, how am I here? How has all this happened over the past of the course of 2 years? How? Like truly how? I am in disbelief. I'm in shock. Like even as I'm recording this episode, my heart is racing. I feel like it's as though it's the very first episode I'm ever recording. I'm honestly in shock that we've made it this far. I'm honestly in shock that the same people tune in every single week. I see you. I know who you are. I know that you tune in on a weekly basis. I know that you've been in support of this. I know that you have been vulnerable enough to share your vulnerabilities. You've been courageous enough to share your vulnerabilities with me. And some of you have even been courageous enough to share their vulnerabilities publicly in comment form on YouTube for everybody to see and have a conversation. Like, honestly, I don't even know. I don't even know how to close today's episode just because I'm in shock. I'm so grateful. Happy birthday, Being Aloud podcast. It's been 2 years. And from the deepest part of my heart, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. My dearest friend, it doesn't matter if this is the first episode you've ever listened to, or if you've listened to all of them, or what. There's enough content for you to backtrack and see what a journey it's been. We have together created a safe space for us to talk about things. I mean, the heart-to-heart conversations that I've had with you on bad days, or talking about divorce and the terror and ugliness of that thing, to talking about cancer and the ugliness that is, to talking about death, breakups, relationships, work, creativity. We have talked about so many things. Chances are, whatever emotion you have had, we've talked about it. I just want to thank you from the deepest part of my heart. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being supportive. Thank you for sharing the episodes. I have seen you. I've seen the support. I felt it in my heart, and it's meant the entire world. And honestly, all I can see from here is that we're going to grow even more together. We are going to grow the Being Aloud family even more. We're going to expand. We're going to be even more vulnerable. And we're just going to see where life takes us together, through the ups and downs. Doesn't really matter. If you are in support of this, if you want to celebrate this 2-year anniversary with me, I ask that you would share this with your friends, share the Being Aloud podcast with your loved ones. We have over 500,000 downloads as of today. And I know that we can only take this further and further and further and watch it grow even more. So if if you're in support of the Being Aloud podcast, please be sure to hit the subscribe button on YouTube or to hit the follow button on any other audio form. And thank you again. And I cannot wait to see you again next time.